Good morning, everyone. It's my real privilege and pleasure to be with you this morning. If you haven't been with us over the last few weeks, we've been going through our I Am series, and we've been looking at the nature and the character of God through the statements that Jesus makes about himself in the book of John. We've looked at I am the bread of life, I am the gate, I am the good shepherd, I am the way, and I am the resurrection and the life. This is a really important series. We've been discovering what Jesus said about himself, and what better way to find out more about who he is than to listen to the words that he himself spoke. If you haven't listened back to the other I Am messages, I really encourage you to. They're available online. This morning we'll be looking at another of the statements that Jesus makes about himself in the book of John. I am the light of the world. John 8 verse 12 says, when Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Our passage this morning comes from John's eyewitness account of the life of Jesus. For a bit of background, John was a young fisherman. In some of the reading I've done, he and his brother James were described as having bold personalities. So I think we can take what we will from that. But I find it encouraging. They're not perfect people. We're not perfect people. But God chooses them to speak to us today. So Jesus nicknamed them the sons of thunder. This is reassuring for us. Jesus' followers are not perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. But thank God that he uses us. So John was one of Jesus' closest friends. We'll be skipping around his book throughout the course of this morning. Now, we can't begin to talk about light until we understand that there is darkness. And this leads me on to a perfect family story about my lovely dad. And this might be a story you can relate to or something that you experience in your household. But as teenagers, my brothers and I were very, very bad for leaving a room and leaving the light on. And it used to get on my dad's nerves. We knew this because we could hear the sighing from downstairs while he was upstairs. And he'd be sort of stomping around and saying things like, it's like the Blackpool illuminations up here, you lot. Turn the lights off, save money, save energy, and things to that effect. So my dad decided we were going fully dark all the time, even at night time, where we sort of suggested it might be a good idea to put on the landing light at least. You know, what if you need to get a glass of water? What if you're poorly in the night? What if you come back later than everybody else? But no, he was on a crusade for full darkness. One night, we heard some rather strange noises, a bit of banging, a bit of crashing, a bit of door slamming, and then sort of what sounded like a torrent of water. It was very strange. So my dad went to go and investigate in the dark and eventually discovered my brother doing a wee in the shower. Needless to say, the landing light was back on after this. Darkness is disorientating and confusing, isn't it? My poor brother was disorientated and confused in the darkness. You might have experienced getting lost when you're driving in the dark, or that paranoia when you're walking late at night. You can't see what's coming up ahead of you. You don't know what's behind you. But not all darkness we experience is physical darkness. Jesus talks about those walking in darkness. He's not talking about late night dog walkers. Here, Jesus uses darkness as a picture to describe what life is like without him. In this life, we will all experience darkness. It could be the darkness of living with an illness, a fear, anxiety, or depression. It could be the presence of an unhealthy habit or a dependency. It could be the influence or the actions of another person that are dark. It could be a bad decision, a broken relationship, or any time that we choose to go our own way and not God's. Darkness is unavoidable because we live in a broken world. It's all around us. Romans 8:22 says, we know that the whole creation is groaning together as it suffers together the pains of labor, darkness, suffering. Psalm 23 describes how we walk through the valley of the shadow, darkness again, of death. And that all sounds a bit grim, doesn't it? But despite this darkness, there is hope for all of us. In the same way that street lamps can make a dark walk less frightening and a sat-nav can guide us through dark, unfamiliar places, we don't have to navigate the darkness alone because Jesus says, I am the light of the world. Have a look again at our verse for this morning. I am the light of the world, says Jesus. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Let's put this into context for a minute. Jesus was speaking to a large crowd after something called the Feast of the Tabernacles, which would have been one of the most popular Jewish festivals. Huge numbers of people would flock to Jerusalem for the celebration. And much like when we celebrate harvest today, it was a time when people remembered to thank God for his goodness to them. In particular, the festival helped them to remember God's faithfulness to the Israelites who wandered the wilderness for 40 years. If you remember the story from Exodus, the Israelites were wandering the desert, living in tents and temporary shelters. And despite their daily struggle in the wilderness, God was present with them. He sent a thick cloud to shade them and lead them by day. And at night, he turned that cloud into a pillar of fire. Imagine. It provided them with warmth, but was also a visible, undeniable, very dramatic sign of his presence with them. The Feast of the Tabernacles was a reminder of his light and of his presence. One of the ceremonies that would have taken place at the Feast of the Tabernacles was the lighting up of the temple courts. So as a reminder of that huge pillar of fire that sent by God to lead the way for the Israelites, the priests lit, just try and imagine this in your mind, 4 75-foot tall, not sure how they managed to light them, golden lamps to emit a brilliant blaze of light that would have been visible all across Jerusalem. So as Jesus spoke about being the light of the world, the crowd will have heard it with the backdrop of the festival in their mind and with the image of those powerful burning lamps. Jesus was making an undeniable statement about who he was, who he is. I am the light. He might as well have been telling them, I am God, the same God that sent that pillar of fire, the same God who provided for your ancestors. I am the light. He was telling them exactly what we need to still remember now. There is darkness, but he is the light and he is with us. If you're watching a film and the dark storm clouds begin to gather or there's a power cut in the night, you can be pretty certain that there is some imminent danger. Something's going to go really wrong. Something bad is about to happen. And it's the same with the dark in our lives. We are all sinful by nature. Our hearts are stubborn. We want to live our own way, don't we? We want to be God of our own lives. We love to keep that sin, all of those parts of our lives where we're not honoring God, private and secret. We like to keep them in the dark so no one sees them. Now, one Christmas, one of my lovely children took a bowl of chocolates that was sitting on the lounge table. I realized that she was missing, and I realized that the chocolates were missing, so I followed the rustling noise, and I found her eventually in a very dark, small gap between 2 sofas. I looked down to see a lot of wrappers, and she looked up at me to see my face. There was chocolate it was just everywhere. She looked at me with her big eyes that began to water, and her face scrunched up, and she went, "Don't look at me!" It was a moment of shame for her. She knew she'd done something that she shouldn't have done. Don't look at me. It's the same thing that Adam and Eve said to God when they disobeyed him by eating the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. They realized that they were naked. They hid in the darkness inside the trees and they felt shame. My daughter realized she'd done the wrong thing. She hid in the darkness between 2 sofas and she felt shame. Maybe you can think of a time when you've been overtaken by guilt and shame. I'm sure we all can. That horrible feeling where you want the ground to swallow you up and you just want to disappear. You want to hide and you don't want to be found. John 3 verse 19 to 21 says, "This is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but people loved darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. But whoever lives by truth comes into the light, so it may be seen plainly that what they have done has been done in the sight of God. I think maybe that seems a bit scary on the first reading. None of us like words like exposed. My daughter did not want to be exposed after snaffling a bowl of Christmas chocolate. Adam and Eve did not want to be exposed after they'd given in to temptation. And if I sent you an email this week and asked you to please kindly send me a list of all the times you've gone your own way instead of God's, so we could just run them across the large screen and bring them into the light, I'm not sure that many of you would take me up on my offer. As John reminded us above, the people loved darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. We mess up, don't we? Very regularly. And our shame and our guilt keep us in the dark for fear that we might be exposed, rejected, or punished. Notice it in the passage, it says, whoever lives by truth comes into the light. It doesn't say whoever commits no evil ever comes into the light, or whoever is perfect comes into the light. No. Whoever lives their life following Jesus comes into the light. We can live by the truth. We can come to church every week. We can go to house group. We can be on the coffee rota. We can serve in the prayer team. We are still going to get it wrong. God knows we will. But when Jesus died on the cross, he took on the sin of the world. He took on every single time you mess up, every time you miss the mark, every time you try to go it alone, and every time you make yourself God. He took it all onto himself. On the cross, he was plunged into darkness. He paid the price. He took the punishment that we deserve. Our sin, our shame, our darkness has been dealt with. God has forgiven us. Jesus paid the price so we no longer have to live in darkness. We can know freedom and forgiveness when we confess our sin to the one who sees it all and loves us anyway. He brings it into the light. John 1 verse 5 says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." However dark your situation might feel, whether it's darkness around you or darkness within you, Jesus reminds us that ultimately the hope we have in him cannot be overcome by any type of darkness. Sometimes darkness feels insurmountable. But in the same way, our eyes are drawn to even the tiniest pinprick of a star in a black night sky. Jesus wants to draw you into his unending light that is his hope, his forgiveness, his freedom for us all. It's there even if the darkness feels overwhelming for you. Jesus is the light of the world. That truth changes everything for us. Jesus is God. He lived a perfect and blameless life, but he died for all those who haven't lived perfect and blameless lives. He conquered death, and he was raised to life again. All of your sin, all of your darkness is forgiven. And if you believe that, you can be with God for eternity. It's utterly incredible, isn't it? It's life-changing, but it's not the whole story. That's not it. When you consider Jesus' time on earth, it was marked by light. A bright star shone over the stable when he was born in Bethlehem, and at the time of his death on the cross, darkness fell over the land. During his time on earth, Jesus gave us a taste of the light of heaven. He showed us what the kingdom of God looks like, and he brought it to earth. He healed the sick, he loved the least, he challenged religious leaders who were driven by the law and not by love. He called out sin. He performed miracles. He banished demons. And the really bonkers thing is, he wants you and I to do the same. That's what he calls us to. Because he is light, we are called to live as light too. In Matthew 5, verse 14, Jesus says to his followers, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Jesus doesn't ask us to get that light and cradle it in our palms and to guard it. He doesn't ask us to hide it under a bowl. Think back to the Feast of the Tabernacles that we spoke about earlier. It was a joyous celebration of praise where huge lamps were lit, declaring the goodness of God. The whole of Jerusalem could see them. Jesus invites us to the festival. He invites us to remember his goodness, to share it and to celebrate it. Jesus calls us to be light too. If you're here today and you are a follower of Jesus, I wonder how often you bring this to mind. Jesus said about himself, I am the light of the world. And Jesus says, you are the light of the world. More than that, you aren't just sort of fumbling around with a tiny little nightlight. Jesus said, you are a city on a hill that cannot be hidden. What an image of strength that is. If you're anything like me, you'll struggle with that idea, particularly when we're so aware of our weaknesses and all the ways that we get it wrong. But more scripture just to blast away that lie too. In John 14, Jesus says, very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these. Jesus has given you authority to be a light in the world, to bring his kingdom to earth by being light in your families, in your workplaces, in your schools and in your colleges, in Tesco, at the park, literally wherever you are, walking the dog, he's called you to be light. And we can't be light unless we continually draw from the source. You can't expect solar panels to create electricity for your home if you install them under your flooring. They need to be able to absorb the sunlight to release energy. In the same way, we can't be a light in the world if we aren't ever absorbing the light of life for ourselves. We need to be spending time with Jesus. When we read about Jesus in the Gospels, he's constantly withdrawing to be with God, to pray, to listen to his Father. And the more time we spend with God in his word, the more solar panels we have facing the sun. The more light we absorb, the more light we have to share. As I come to a close, I'd really like to read this passage from Matthew 5:14 to 16 again. This time it's the Message version. I'd love you to follow it with me. Here is another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colours of the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I've put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God, this generous Father in heaven. Jesus tells us that he is the light of the world. He tells us that although there is darkness, it will never, ever overcome his glorious light. Jesus said, whoever lives by truth, whoever follows him, has come into that light. And Jesus says, you are the light of the world, and that others can come to know who he is because of your light. We're going to pray together. Jesus, you are the light of the world. Lord, I thank you for your light that is hope and freedom and forgiveness. Lord, and I thank you that that light is our joy, Lord. It's our salvation. Lord, I pray that we would remember that you have called us to be light in the places that you've put us, Lord. It's really easy for us to act like we've just got that tiny nightlight, Lord, but you say we are like a city on a hill, Lord, and may we live our lives like that, Lord. Lord, there are some of us today who really need to know your light in our lives. I pray, Lord, that you would draw close to us now and that you would speak to us. Thank you for your goodness to us, Lord. We ask that your light would shine bright in our lives, Lord, in every situation, that you would reign, Lord. Today you might be here and you might feel swallowed up in darkness. Perhaps it's darkness within, or it might be the darkness of circumstances around you. And today you need Jesus' light. Perhaps you've never heard about any of this before, but you recognize that actually you're living your life feeling pretty lost in the dark, and that you might want to invite Jesus to be the light of your life, or just to know more about who he is. We'd really love to pray for you this morning. Maybe you are a follower of Jesus here today, and you can just feel that light within you has dwindled. It's not what it was. Maybe you know that's because there are areas of darkness in your life that you need to let his light into today. Perhaps you've been keeping your lamplight under a bowl. You've forgotten that Jesus calls you to be light. Maybe today Jesus is reminding you, perhaps he's giving you that nudge. Hang on a minute. I called you to be a city on a hill, and I want to use you. I want you to shine in the places that I've put you. If any of that rings true this morning, or if you want to respond in any other way, we would love to pray for you. I think we've got prayer ministry at the back of the church. You can come to the front and we'd love to pray, or perhaps you want to pray with someone that you've come with this morning, or someone sitting next to you. But please take this opportunity to respond. If God's giving you a nudge, please go and get prayer.